The morning sun was bright and beautiful over the grand palace. It was just another day for everyone else in the kingdom. People were going to their jobs. Children were going to school. Nobody knew that this ordinary Tuesday would become a day that nobody would ever forget. Captain James Mitchell had been a royal guard for 23 years. He was strong, brave, and loyal. His uniform was always perfect, his shoes always shiny. But inside he was tired. He had worked too many long days and too many sleepless nights. His wife had asked him to leave this job many times. "It is too dangerous," she would say. "Come home to us. Be safe." But James always said the same thing. "I cannot leave. The royal family needs me." James stood at his post outside the private airplane hangar. This was a special day. The young Princess Emily, only 14 years old, was flying to another country with her mother, Queen Victoria, and her lady-in-waiting, Mrs. Elizabeth. The trip was supposed to be a simple visit to meet with other countries' leaders. Everything was planned. Everything was safe. Or so they thought. The princess was beautiful and kind. She loved to read books. She loved to draw pictures. Everyone in the kingdom loved her because she was not cold or mean like some royal children. She was warm and real. She talked to people like they were her friends. James had been protecting her since she was born. He watched her grow from a baby into a young woman. In his heart, she was like his own daughter. "Good morning, Captain James." Emily called out. She was running toward the airplane with her mother. She waved at him with a big, happy smile. "Will you miss us?" James smiled back, but his smile was sad. "Always, my princess," he said quietly. What James did not know was that something very bad was about to happen. The princess and her mother got on the private airplane. It was a beautiful, expensive plane with cream-colored seats and soft lighting. There were only 10 people on the board: the queen, the princess, the lady-in-waiting for guards, 2 airplane workers, and 1 pilot. James watched from below as the plane's doors closed. He always felt worried when the princess flew. Something inside him always screamed that flying was dangerous, but he had no reason to be worried this time. Everything was checked and safe. The pilot was excellent. The airplane was new. The engine started to make a loud noise. The plane began to move slowly toward the runway. James stood with his hand on his chest, watching until the plane lifted into the sky and disappeared into the clouds. "She will be fine," his partner, Officer David, said. "She always is." But James did not feel fine. Something in his heart was telling him something was wrong. 20 minutes later, everything changed. James was walking back to his office when he heard a loud sound from the sky. It was not a normal sound. It was a sound that made his blood go cold. He looked up and saw black smoke in the distance. His heart started to beat very fast. Very, very fast. "Did you hear that?" David asked, running toward him. His face was white like paper. "What was that sound?" Before James could answer, his radio came to life. A voice was shouting, filled with fear and panic. "Code red. Code red. The royal plane has lost engine power." Repeating, "The royal plane has lost engine power. We are starting emergency landing procedures." The words hit James like a heavy stone. His legs felt weak. His hands started to shake. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." "The princess," David said. "The princess is on that plane." James did not think. He did not plan. He just ran. He ran faster than he had ever run in his life. His uniform was perfect, but now his hair was wild and his face was red from running in fear. Other guards were shouting, trying to tell him where to go. Nobody knew what to do. Nobody had ever trained for this. The emergency hangar was filled with people: military workers, doctors, police officers. Everyone was running and shouting. Some people were crying. Some people were pale and quiet. "Where is the plane?" James shouted at the first person he saw. 5 minutes away," someone said. "Maybe less. It is trying to land in the emergency field outside the city." 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. James closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about Emily. He thought about how she had waved at him that morning. He thought about how she had asked if he would miss her. He thought about her kind smile and her warm heart. Please, he whispered to God, or to anyone who was listening, please let her be okay. Please let them all be okay. The emergency lights were flashing red. The sound was loud and scary. Everyone was moving fast, getting ready for something terrible. Ambulances were waiting. Fire trucks were waiting. Everything was ready for the worst. But nothing could prepare them for what was about to happen. In just a few minutes, the plane would try to land on the emergency field. In just a few minutes, James would find out if the princess, the girl he had loved like a daughter for 14 years, was going to live or die. His heart was breaking before anything had even happened. This was the day that everything would change. This was the day that would test him in ways he never imagined. And he had no idea that he would do something today that the whole kingdom would never forget. The sky was dark, very dark. The radio was filled with urgent voices speaking in quick, short words. Everyone at the emergency hangar was holding their breath. Nobody was moving. Nobody was talking. They were all just listening to the sounds from the radio and praying. Royal Air One, we have you on radar, came a calm voice from Control Tower. You are at 3,000 feet. The landing strip is clear. Repeat, the landing strip is clear. You are cleared for emergency landing. Inside the plane, Captain David from the security team was holding onto the seat in front of him. The plane was shaking. It was shaking very, very badly. The sound was terrible, like the plane was angry or dying. The other guards were holding on to anything they could. Mrs. Elizabeth was trying to stay calm for the Queen and the Princess, but inside, her heart was breaking with fear. Queen Victoria sat next to her daughter. She was holding Emily's hand very tightly. Her face was pale. Her lips were moving, but no words were coming out. She was praying silently. Princess Emily was different. The young princess was looking out the window, watching the ground come closer and closer. She was only 14 years old, but in this moment, she was brave. Her mother was scared, so Emily was trying to be strong for her mother. It will be okay, Mama, Emily said softly. We will land safely. I know we will. But the pilot's voice on the radio told a different story. He sounded scared, very scared. Control Tower, we are losing altitude faster than we should, the pilot said. His voice was shaking. The left engine is completely dead. The right engine is failing. I am trying to keep the nose up, but it is very difficult. 2,000 feet. At the hangar, Captain James heard these words. His heart felt like it was going to break into 1,000 pieces. Emily was up there. The Queen was up there. And they were falling. Come on, James whispered. His hands were in fists. Come on, come on. You can make it. Officer David put his hand on James's shoulder, but James did not feel it. He was not in this world anymore. He was flying in that plane with Emily. He was feeling what she was feeling. 1,500 feet. The radio crackled again. Control Tower, I cannot hold the altitude. We are coming down too fast. We are going to. The radio went silent. A terrible silence filled the hangar. Everyone stopped breathing. Everyone was frozen. Royal Air One? Royal Air One, do you copy? The control tower kept calling. Royal Air One, please respond. Nothing. Just dead, empty silence. James felt the world spin around him. His daughter. His little princess. No, this could not happen. Not to her. Not to anyone on that plane. There, someone shouted. Everyone looked up at the sky. Through the dark clouds, they could see something. The plane. It was very low now. Too low. It was coming down too fast. Way too fast. The plane was falling out of the sky, like a broken bird. Ambulances. Get ready, the chief officer shouted. Fire trucks, stand by. This is going to be bad. James pushed through the crowd of workers. He had to see. He had to know if Emily was alive. He ran to the edge of the hangar, outside, where he could see the emergency landing strip. The plane was coming down. 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 The sound was horrible. The engines were screaming. The metal was twisting. The wind was making a noise like an animal in pain. Please, James whispered again. Please, God. Please save her. The plane hit the ground. The impact was enormous. The whole earth shook. Dust and smoke flew everywhere. The plane actually bounced on the landing strip. Everyone watching thought it would flip over. They thought it would break into pieces. But it didn't. The plane slid across the ground, leaving black marks from the wheels burning on the strip. Sparks were flying everywhere like fireworks, but terrible fireworks. The plane was sliding, sliding, and then it stopped. For a moment, everything was quiet, quieter than quiet. Even the birds in the sky seemed to stop singing. Then the emergency team moved. Fire trucks raced toward the plane. Ambulances followed. Police cars were everywhere. Workers were running and shouting. But James was already moving. He was already running toward the plane before anyone else had taken a step. "Captain, wait!" Officer David called after him. But James could not wait. He would not wait. The smoke was thick. James could barely see the plane, but he kept running. His uniform was perfect this morning, but now he did not care about his uniform. He only cared about Emily. The door of the plane was stuck. The impact had twisted it. Four workers were trying to pull it open, but it would not move. "Move!" James shouted. He used his strength that came from fear and love, and pulled the door hard. So hard, the door started to move. Metal screamed against metal. The door opened. Smoke poured out like water from a broken pipe. Nobody could see inside. But then, figures started to appear. People were moving. People were alive. Queen Victoria came out first, coughing and holding her face. Mrs. Elizabeth was behind her, holding her arm and helping her down. And then, Emily. Princess Emily came to the door of the plane. Her dress was dirty. Her hair was messy. But she was alive. She was alive. When Emily saw James, something changed in her face. Tears started to fall from her eyes. Real tears. Tears of fear and relief. "Captain James," she cried out. Her voice was like a child's voice now, not a brave princess's voice. "Captain James." James reached up and caught her as she jumped from the plane. He held her in his arms. This girl he loved so much was alive. She was safe. He was holding her, and she was safe. Emily was crying into his shoulder. She was holding on to him like she would never let him go. "I knew you would be here," Emily whispered. "I knew you would save us." James could not speak. His eyes were full of tears, too. He was shaking. He was alive. Emily was alive. They were all alive. The paramedics were checking everyone. The Queen was hurt but breathing. The pilot was hurt but alive. Everyone had survived the impossible. But James was not thinking about the others. He was holding Emily, this brave, kind, beautiful girl who he had protected since the day she was born. She was alive because she had been brave. But she was safe now because James was there. And in that moment, Captain James Mitchell understood something very important. Love was stronger than fear. Love was stronger than death. Love was the most powerful thing in the world. The hospital was bright and cold. Everything was white. The walls were white. The sheets were white. The lights were white. Emily lay in a white hospital bed, and she hated the color white now. It reminded her of being scared. It reminded her of the plane falling from the sky. It had been 2 days since the crash. Emily had a broken arm and some bad bruises on her body, but the doctor said she was lucky, very lucky. Queen Victoria had a broken leg and 2 broken ribs, but she was alive. Everyone on the plane was alive. The doctors kept saying this like it was a miracle. Maybe it was. But Emily did not feel lucky. She felt broken inside. Her mother was in another room, sleeping because of strong medicine. Mrs. Elizabeth had gotten a bad cut on her head, but she was okay. The guards, the airplane workers, the pilot, everyone had survived. But something had broken inside all of them when the plane fell. Emily could not sleep. She could not eat much food. She was having bad dreams when she did sleep. In the dreams, the plane was falling again, and again, and again. Nobody understood except one person. Captain James came to see her every single day. He would sit in the chair next to her bed for hours. Sometimes he would talk. Sometimes he would just sit quietly, reading a book or looking out the window, but he was always there. Today was the third day, and Emily was feeling very sad. Her arm hurt, her body hurt, but her heart hurt the most. She was looking out the window at the city below, at all the people living their normal lives, when she heard a soft knock on the door. "Come in," she said quietly. Captain James came in. He was not wearing his uniform today. He was wearing regular clothes, a simple shirt and dark pants. Without his uniform, he looked different. He looked older. He looked tired, but his eyes were kind. "Hello, my princess," he said. This was what he always called her now. Emily looked at him, and suddenly something broke inside her. Her face became red. Her body started to shake, and tears started to fall. Not just one or two tears. Many tears. So many tears. She was crying like she had never cried before. James moved quickly. He came to her bed and sat down next to her. He was careful not to touch her broken arm. He just sat with her while she cried. "I am sorry," Emily said between cries. "I am sorry. I thought we were going to die. I thought Mama was going to die. I thought everyone was going to die, and it was my fault." "Your fault," James said softly. "Emily, nothing was your fault." "Yes, it was." Emily cried harder. "If I had not wanted to go on this trip, nobody would have been on that plane. If I had been sick that day, the plane would not have crashed. It is my fault. All of it is my fault." James took a deep breath. He had seen many broken things in his life. He had seen broken buildings. He had seen broken weapons. But seeing a broken heart was the hardest thing of all. "Emily," he said, and his voice was very quiet and very gentle. "Can I tell you something true? Something real?" Emily nodded, still crying. "When I was a young guard," James began, "I made a big mistake. I thought I could control everything. I thought if I was strong enough and smart enough, I could stop bad things from happening. And when bad things happened anyway, I thought it was my fault." Emily was listening now, even though tears were still falling from her eyes. "I was wrong," James continued. "The world is not in our control. Sometimes bad things happen to good people. Sometimes planes lose their engines. Sometimes accidents happen. But those things are not because of us. They are not our fault." "But everyone could have died," Emily whispered. "Yes," James said. He was not lying to her. He was telling her the truth. Everyone could have died, but they didn't. And do you know why? Emily shook her head. "Because you were brave," James said. "Do you know what I saw when the plane doors opened? I saw a young princess who was trying to be strong for her mother. I saw a girl who was sitting in that plane, terrified, but trying to be brave anyway. That is why everyone lived. Because you were brave. Because your mother was brave. Because the pilot was brave. Bravery saved you. Not luck. Bravery." Emily was listening very carefully now. Her crying was becoming quieter. "The worst thing in life," James said, "is not when bad things happen. The worst thing is when bad things happen, and we lose our hope, when we lose our love for life, when we forget to remember the people who love us." He reached over and took Emily's good hand. His hand was warm and strong. "I love you, Emily," James said, "not because you are a princess. Not because I am supposed to love you, because it is my job. I love you because you are a good person. You are kind. You are brave. And right now, in this moment, when everything is broken and scary, I need you to know something very important." "What?" Emily asked, her voice very small. "You are going to get better," James said. "Your arm will heal. Your body will heal. Your heart will heal too. It takes time, but it will happen. And I will be here the whole time. I will not leave. Do you believe me?" Emily looked at this man who had been protecting her since she was born. She looked at his tired face and his kind eyes. She looked at his hand, holding her hand. "Yes," she whispered. "I believe you." For a long time, they sat together in the white hospital room. Emily's crying slowly stopped, but she did not let go of James's hand. She held it like it was the only real thing in a world that had become very strange and scary. Outside the window, the sun was starting to set. The sky was turning orange and pink and gold. It was beautiful. For the first time since the crash, Emily noticed something beautiful. It made her feel a little bit better. "Thank you," she said to James. "For what?" he asked. "For being here," she said. "For telling me the truth. For loving me." James smiled a sad, beautiful smile. "Always," he said. "I will always be here." In that moment, Emily understood something. Sometimes, when everything breaks into pieces, what matters most is not fixing everything. What matters most is having someone who will sit with you in the darkness, someone who will hold your hand, someone who loves you no matter what. Captain James Mitchell was that person for Emily, and Emily was his reason to be brave. 2 weeks had passed since the crash. Emily's cast was gone now, but her arm was still weak. She had to do exercises every day to make it strong again. Physical therapy was hard. It hurt, but she was doing it. She was trying. Queen Victoria was walking with a cane now. She was getting stronger every day. The kingdom was very happy about this. There were news stories on television about the royal family's recovery. People were sending cards and letters and flowers to the hospital. Everyone wanted to show their love, but not everyone was healing. Captain James Mitchell was sitting in the guard office one evening, and nobody could see the pain inside him. On the outside, he looked the same. His uniform was perfect. His shoes were shiny. But inside, something had broken. He was not sleeping. Every night, he would close his eyes and see the plane falling from the sky. He would hear the sound of the engines dying. He would feel the fear he had felt when he ran toward the crashed plane. Other guards were talking about James. They said he was different. He was quieter. He was not smiling anymore. Officer David, his closest friend, was very worried about him. "James," David said one day, "you need to rest. You are working too hard." "I am fine," James said. But he was not fine. He was dying slowly inside. Emily did not know this. Emily thought Captain James was fine because he always smiled when he came to visit her. She did not know that he was having nightmares like she was having nightmares. She did not know that he was not eating well. She did not know that his wife was crying at home because he was not talking to her anymore. What James was doing, he was doing in secret. He was suffering alone. One day, Emily was walking in the hospital hallway by herself. Her arm was getting stronger. The doctors said she could go home in 2 more days. She was feeling happy about this. But when she saw Captain James coming out of the doctor's office, she knew something was wrong. His face was very pale. He was holding a piece of paper in his hand. His hand was shaking. "Captain James?" Emily said, "Are you okay?" James looked up, surprised. He quickly put the paper in his pocket. He tried to smile, but the smile did not look real. "Of course," he said. "How are you feeling?" "I am okay," Emily said. But she was not answering his question. She was asking her own question. "Why are you here? Are you sick?" James looked away. "Just a routine check," he said. But it was a lie. Emily could tell it was a lie. "Captain James," Emily said. She used his first name only when she was very serious. "Tell me the truth, please." James sat down on a chair in the hallway. He was tired, so very tired. He could not lie to her anymore. He could not pretend to be strong when he was falling apart. "The doctor says I have something wrong with my heart," he said quietly, not like a broken heart from sadness, but a real problem with how my heart works. The crash, the stress from the crash, it made it worse. Emily felt like the world had stopped moving. Her legs felt weak. She sat down next to him. "What does that mean?" she asked. Her voice was very small. "It means," James said slowly, "that I need to stop working. The doctor says my job is too stressful, too much danger, too much worry. He says I need to retire, to stop being a guard." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "No," she said. "No, no, no. You cannot stop. You love your job. You love protecting people." "I know," James said, and he started to cry too. Not like a strong man, like a broken man. "But I cannot protect people if I am dead. And the doctor says that if I keep working, my heart will fail. I could die, Emily. I could leave my wife alone. I could leave my job unfinished. They sat together in the hallway, and both of them were crying. People were walking past them, but neither of them cared. They were too sad. "It is my fault," Emily whispered. "If I had not been on that plane, this would not have happened to you." James turned to look at her. His eyes were full of tears, but his voice became strong again. "No," he said firmly. "This is not your fault. Listen to me, Emily. I need you to listen very carefully." Emily looked at him. "I was dying before the crash," James said. "Not for my heart, but for my life. I was a man who was doing his job, but not living his life. I was protecting people, but not loving my wife. I was working, but not thinking about what was important." He took her hand, her good hand. "Then the crash happened," he said, "and I realized something. When I held you in my arms at that plane, I realized that what I had been protecting all these years was not just a princess. It was a person I loved, and that love was worth more than any uniform or any job." Emily was listening. "So yes, I am stopping my job as a guard," James continued, "but I am not stopping my life. I am finally starting my real life. I am going to spend time with my wife. I am going to heal my heart, and I am going to be there for you, Emily, not as a guard, but as a friend, as someone who loves you and will always be there." Emily understood now. She understood that sometimes loving someone means letting them go. It means wanting what is best for them, even when it makes you sad. "I will miss you," she said. "I will not go far," James said. "I will be retired, but I will be near, and you can visit me. You can call me. You can tell me everything about your life. Because even though I am not your guard anymore, you are still my princess. You will always be my princess." They hugged in that hospital hallway. A young princess and an old guard, an old man and a young girl. But really, they were something more. They were two people who had loved each other through the darkest moment of their lives. And that love had changed both of them forever. James would leave his job as a guard, but he would never leave being Emily's protector. Because true protection is not about uniforms or duty. True protection is about love, about being there, about caring so much about another person that you would do anything for them, even if that meant letting them go, even if that meant changing your whole life. That is what real love means. The garden was beautiful in the summer. Flowers were blooming in every color, red, yellow, purple, and white. A small cottage sat at the edge of the garden with white walls and a green door. It was a peaceful place, a place where broken things could heal. This was where Captain James Mitchell lived now. He had retired from his job 5 years ago. 5 years since the crash. 5 years since his heart had broken and then healed in a new way. His wife, Margaret, was working in the garden, planting new flowers. She was smiling. She was happy. For many years, while James worked as a guard, Margaret had been sad and alone. She had asked him many times to come home, to spend time with her. But he had always been working, always protecting someone else, always too busy for his own life. Now he had time. Now he was home. Now he was a man she had married, not the tired guard, but the real James, the real man inside. James sat on a wooden bench in the garden and watched his wife work. Her hands were in the dirt. Her hair was in the sun. She was humming a song. He loved her so much in this moment that it hurt. "You are smiling," Margaret said, not looking up from her flowers. "I am thinking," James said, "about how lucky I am." Margaret looked at him. Her face was kind and beautiful. "You almost died," she said. "Your heart was breaking." "How is that lucky?" "Because I survived," James said. "And because I learned what really matters. I learned that a lifetime of protecting a princess is not the same as a lifetime of loving my wife. I learned that duty is important, but love is more important." Margaret smiled and came to sit next to him on the bench. She took his hand. They sat together quietly, watching the flowers move in the wind. But they were not alone for long. A car came up the small road to the cottage. It was a simple car, not fancy. A young woman got out. She was 19 years old now. No longer a young princess, but young woman. She was beautiful and kind and brave. She was Princess Emily. "Captain James," she called out, running to him. She was still calling him by his old title. Even though he was not a guard anymore, James stood up and hugged her. She was almost as tall as he was now, almost grown, but in his arms, she was still that 14-year-old girl who had been so scared on the crashing plane. "Hello, my princess," he said. He always called her that. "How are you feeling?" Emily asked. She asked this every time she visited. She still worried about his heart. "I am perfect," James said, "because you are here." Emily smiled. "I brought you something," she said. She held up a book. It was a thick book with a beautiful cover. On the front it said, "The Crash That Changed Everything, a true story of survival and love." James took the book carefully. His hands were shaking. "This is your story?" he asked. "Our story," Emily corrected him. "I wrote it about the crash, about what happened in the hospital, about you, about how you saved me. Not just from the plane, but from despair, from believing that the world was broken." James opened the book and read the first line. Captain James Mitchell was a man who had spent 23 years protecting others, but he had never learned how to love. Until one day, love taught him everything. James could not speak. Tears were falling from his eyes. "I want to tell the world," Emily said, "about a man who gave up everything for love. Not romantic love, but real love. The love of a father for his daughter. The love of a protector for the person he protects. The love that is stronger than duty." Margaret was crying too. She put her arm around James. "You changed my life," Emily continued. "When I was scared, you were there. When I thought it was my fault, you told me the truth. When I thought I was alone, you showed me I was loved. And now I want everyone to know. I want everyone to know that there are people like you. Real heroes, not superhero heroes, but real people who love truly and deeply." James hugged her again. He could not say anything. Words were not enough. That evening, they sat together in the garden, James, Margaret, and Emily. They ate dinner under the stars. They talked and laughed and remembered the crash. They remembered the fear and the pain, but they also remembered the love that had come from all of that darkness. "You know," Emily said, "the hospital asked me to do something. They want me to visit children who are scared, children who have been in accidents. They want me to tell them that they will be okay, that healing is possible. Will you help me?" James looked at this young woman who had been a frightened girl. She was so strong now, so brave, so full of love for others. "Yes," he said, "I will help you. I will always help you." "Not as a guard," Emily said with a smile, "but as a friend, as someone who cares." "Yes," James said, "exactly like that." Over the next few years, James and Emily worked together. They visited hospitals. They talked to children who had survived accidents. They told them that love was stronger than fear. They told them that people who cared about them would help them heal. They told them the truth, that life is hard and scary sometimes, but it is also beautiful and worth living. James never put on his guard uniform again, but he found a new purpose, a new way to protect people, not with strength and duty, but with love and truth. Emily wrote more books. She became a speaker. She told the story of the crash to the whole world. She told the world about Captain James Mitchell, the man who loved so truly that he was willing to give up everything for someone else. The crash was the worst moment of both of their lives, but it was also the moment that changed everything. It was a moment that taught them what really matters. It was a moment that showed them that love is the most powerful force in the world. Years later, when people asked Emily about the crash, she would say, "I lost my fear on that plane, but I gained something better. I gained a father. I gained someone who loved me so much that he was willing to change his entire life for me." And when people asked James about retirement, he would say, "I spent my life protecting a princess from danger, but the real gift was not protecting her. The real gift was learning to love her. That is what gave my life meaning." The garden at the white cottage with the green door was always full of flowers. And always, during the summer months, Emily would come to visit. She would sit with James and Margaret, And they would remember the day the plane fell from the sky. They would remember the crash, the fear, the darkness. But they would also remember the love, the strength, the light that came after. And they would know that they were lucky, not lucky to survive, but lucky to have found each other, lucky to have learned what really matters, lucky to have loved so deeply that it changed them forever. This is the true story of a royal guard and a princess. This is the story of how love saved them both.